From a closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio, this is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. This is episode 48 of the JMVO Weekly Primer. The JMVO Weekly Primer is about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, and chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. And I believe that as business owners and entrepreneurs, we are bombarded by negativity every day, and it's the last thing we need. So if you want to see your life and business change for the better, I would suggest consuming, nurturing good stuff. As usual, the primer is brought to you by Big Dot Lighting and Electrical. We are a Middle Tennessee commercial and residential services company that specializes in converting your business to energy-efficient LED lighting. All this month, we're having a high bay special for as low as $239 per fixture with a minimum of 4. And other little stipulations. You can basically convert your large area warehouses, manufacturing facilities, service departments like, an auto dealership, things of that nature. Think high ceilings and big savings, a lot of ease of use and maintenance that go along with that. So give us a call, bigdotlighting.com. So I talk about marinating your mind in good stuff. And the other day, I had a gentleman reach out to me that we were talking about a bunch of different things. We kind of got into business topics as well, but what really fascinated me, and I'm sure fascinates a lot of people out there, is the emerging industry of cannabis. Speaking of marinating your mind in good things. Good stuff. A lot of people do it, and it's a growing industry. And maybe at one time or another in my youth, I might have. I'll just leave that out there. I'm not even going to. I'm not going to say I inhaled or anything that could really bite me in the butt. But please welcome to the show, Julian Espinosa, sir. How are you?
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So you basically. Tell me about your relationship with the company we were talking about, Cannacopia.
Yeah, so Cannacopia is a app. It's found on the App Store and Android Store. And my relationship with Cannacopia is they're my customer. At the moment, Cannacopia does not have an acting marketing officer. So as my customer, I am acting CMO for the company. What I do for a living is I'm a digital marketing growth hacker. The name of my company is on my shirt, if you guys can read it or see it. And for those listening to audio, it's Poppy Digital. And
nice.
Thank you. And Cannacopia is a app, and my job and what we do here is try to get the brand and get the messaging out on what's going on with Cannacopia, what's going on in the cannabis industry. I can sum up Cannacopia if you'd like really quickly.
Sure.
So Cannacopia is an app, and this app is really, really interesting because as not a consumer who consumes cannabis often, I don't know how to buy cannabis. So I'm going to give you the long version, and then I'll give you the short version after. The long version is this. In the marketplace right now, 80% of products purchased are bought by the ongoing daily cannabis consumer, which leaves 20% to the average consumer who consumes maybe like monthly, and then the new consumer who doesn't consume often. So as a cannabis brand and as a cannabis cultivator, you're sort of sitting there and saying to yourself, well, am I going to build products for the 80 or am I going to build products for the 20? So, the math and the economics just makes sense. You build for the 80%. With that being said, the daily consumer knows a lot about cannabis, but the average and the new consumer knows not a lot about cannabis. So
are you finding that a lot of people are wanting to experiment with it now that it's becoming more and more legalized throughout the states? not experiment, but now that they feel like the legalities are all out of the way, are you finding? I mean, obviously, there's like you're talking about, an inexperienced consumer that's never done anything. It's kind of been in a sub economy for the past, I don't know, 80 years or whatever. Is it really they're kind of coming out of the woodwork at this point? Are you finding?
So I'm going to give you the short answer. The short answer is yes, people are doing it. The complicated long answer is, as cannabis has been more accepted, more states are legalizing it. More people are interested in looking at it. So you got to think the first people coming to this who haven't consumed cannabis are the people who did it in college, people who did it maybe in high school, right? Who haven't kept up with cannabis, who haven't tried cannabis in a long time. They're the ones that have already tried it, and they're going to come back to it now because it's legal. But then we also have the new consumer, as we were talking about. And the answer is absolutely. The cannabis market is getting flooded with this new consumer. It is not as big as the daily consumer yet, but it's going to be there, and Cannacopia is betting on that consumer is going to be the majority of the market.
So your app, or the Cannacopia app, is going to help people. It's going to educate them on what to look for when emerging, getting into the market.
So in short, yes. What it does, it's a recommendation engine. So right now, if you wanted to find a cannabis product, you would go to Google and you would type something in and say, I want something for anxiety. I want something for sleep. I want something for to feel active. And then you type in the words like cannabis or cannabis products associated to it. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go and start researching and looking up cannabis and figuring out what makes sense. Well, we kind of thought that's a little backwards. Why not have an interface and a user experience where there's preset feelings? So you want to relieve insomnia, you want to feel active, you want to go to a party, you want to spice up yourself, spice it up in the bedroom. Whatever the common ways people consume cannabis for the common reasons, that's what our app starts with. Then it goes through a curtailed experience to say, okay, now what effects do you want to feel more of? So then you refine it there. Then the next step is, how do you want to consume it? Because some people, like example for an athletes shouldn't really be, especially if it's cardiovascular, right? You shouldn't be inhaling anything. You want to keep your lungs pristine. So maybe an edible, right? So consumption method, how do you want to consume it? So that's that. Then, are you a new consumer? Are you an experienced consumer? Are you an average consumer? How much do you consume? Because the THC percentage is going to be a really big factor. So then there's that. And then when you get to the end, it's going to recommend a product that's available in your area, that's available to you, and it's going to say, here's what you should buy based on how you've just told us how you want to feel.
And does it give you any recommendations as to where to get stuff?
It does.
Okay. So, and you and I talked about, and I had tons of questions when we had our phone call. Yeah. We talked about
you held yourself back from there.
I did, yeah. And I'm just taking notes down here just so you know. When we talked about it, the perception that it has, or the misperception, is that, well, hey, cannabis is just another way to get people high. But you had mentioned a critical component of it, the THC level. But it's not always the end result that people are looking for. They're not, the medicinal aspect of it. How much of what are people kind of looking for? Is it really that, or are they looking to get a buzz?
So the answer is all the above, right? You've heard, have you heard of Charlotte's Web?
Yes, the book, children's book, right? Children's story.
It is a children's book. It's also a strain of cannabis.
How did I know that?
It's got a great story to it. So I don't know it off the top of my head, and I don't know it 100%. Here's what it is, though. There was a family who had a child. I believe she had not epilepsy. She had seizures. She had a lot of seizures, and it was a lot of seizures. It was like 20, 30 a day. And they were in a state that wouldn't allow cannabis. Don't remember what state. Some people know this story probably better than me. Long story short, they tried cannabis for her. I think they tried a CBD-rich cannabis, which is not heavy on the THC side, and from what I recall. And long story short, she doesn't have any more seizures, or significantly reduced the amount of seizures. So that was one of the big, huge stories in modern times of cannabis. And it went on to make a strain name after her, and so on and so forth. And so this has really tons of medicinal purposes. It's not just getting you baked and getting you really, really stoned. It does do that, right? It can, depending on the strain and depending on the potency. But this relieves insomnia. This people who struggle eating relieves that. There's a big movement for cancer patients. It's improving the lives of cancer patients. People going through chemo who don't want to eat, who don't feel well, who suffer for a lot of pain. So it is doing a lot of things, and it also is getting people baked at the same time.
But I mean, not on the level that it traditionally does. If you're taking a consumable, I would imagine that, yeah, there's a little bit of a, buzz effect. But, I mean, honestly, back in the days when I used to do it, it got me really tired and relaxed. Yeah. That was about it. But I mean, a lot of people go to that for, to go to alcohol for that. And, that's the controversial aspect of it. But I mean, like what you're talking about, the health benefits of it, just from taking it as a pill or however you're going to do it, a lot of the misnomers and misconceptions of it are not all that bad. Now, the other thing, and this is kind of up your alley as a marketer as well, are the names of these strains and things of that. The names don't really help the situation because they kind of sound sinister in a way. Is there something underway that they're going to start doing to rebrand how these things are being portrayed?
I'm going to answer that question, but I want to talk about something that you experienced. So you said when you did consume at some point
years ago.
Yep. Whenever you consumed, it made you feel tired. I'm going to assume that was a lot of years ago. Let's just make an assumption.
So many years ago.
Okay. Cannabis has evolved. Cultivation has evolved. And what our perception of what cannabis is a very dated and very dated thought, very dated perception. Sorry. And that perception is very dated for lots of reasons. I'm not going to go into it. With that being said, modern science has evolved cannabis. And I can't go into the scientifics because I don't know them too well, but it's related to something called terpenes. And these terpenes are the profiles in the cannabis plant. And depending on these terpenes, it controls the effect you have. So let's make it very clear. Depending on the strain and depending on its terpenes, it can make you feel really tired and really hungry. It could literally have the opposite effect. It can make you feel very energetic and very focused. It can make you feel aroused. It can make you feel all kinds of different things because we've evolved. Just like modern farming, right? We can make a watermelon be seedless. We can make bananas be seedless because we've done things to the seed and the plant. Same thing in cannabis. We've altered, we've combined and changed. So what was available to you in the state you lived in at the time and the era was relative to what people had out there at that time. Now that's changed in a big way. And based on how you want to feel and the effects you want to feel, whether you want to feel energetic, tired, sleepy, hungry, excited, focused, creative, whatever you want to feel, there's a strain out there for you. So I wanted to, before we got into the names, I wanted to address cannabis has changed. Modern cannabis is no longer sleepy stoner stigma.
Sure.
Back to the names. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is a huge, huge point. By the way, I did on my laptop, I pulled up this Charlotte's Web just so I knew exactly what I was talking about. So coming back to it, Charlotte's Web is very, very, very low THC. THC is the stuff that makes that you feel high, feel really, out there. Mm-hmm. It's very high in the other component, which is CBD, which is that medical stuff, right? And that's what really helped this particular, her name was Charlotte, what helped Charlotte relieve her
symptoms of the seizures.
Her seizures. So now coming back, so you asked a really specific question, a question that I'm really glad you asked because it means you're paying attention. It's, you got things like Purple Haze, OG Kush, Charlie Sheen, Harley Quinn. You got all these random names and you're just like, what the hell do they even do?
Why do I feel like that I'm still doing something wrong?
Exactly. And some brands who have chosen to target the brand new consumer have altered. Candescent is a cannabis brand who has altered its naming its products based on how how you want to feel. So let's go to Candescent. I'm just going to go to their website because I don't remember their product line off the top of my head. They sell 5-6 different lines from what I remember. And here's what they have. So one of their strains is called, or one of their products, they don't even call them strains anymore, they call them products, is called Calm. So I'm assuming you know what that does. There's one called Create. This one says, when it's time to paint, jam, code, blog, or game. There's something called Connect. When it's time to laugh, go out with friends, get intimate, or invite there you go. And then Charge, to get off the couch, take a run, or go out for a night, power up.
Interesting, because that's completely the opposite of what you'd expect it to do. Like you said, the old guard perception of it was, honestly, the last time I did it, I lived in Las Vegas. And we went to a friend of mine's house. And like I said, we got tired. And the good friend of mine that I was with, we ended up, stupidly driving home. But it has the opposite effect of you of being drunk. I mean, you're aware of your surroundings, but you're almost overly stimulated on them to the point where, right. I'd stop at the red light and he'd go, dude, what are you doing? I'm stopping at the red light. He goes, yeah, but you're like 100 feet away from the line. Oh, it makes you over careful, but yeah, that was the last time I did it. And it was well over 15 years ago. And it was an interesting experience. I was like, after that, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done. I just don't need to do this anymore. I was exhausted.
And exactly. It's let's put it this way. It's not for everyone, right? Right. Cannabis is not for everyone, and that's okay. But it's, why I'm such a proponent behind it is because it does a lot of good for a lot of people. Personally, Jim, it does nothing for me. Last time I consumed, I don't know if it was 15 years ago, but at least a decade ago. And, I got a kick out of a hedgehog in the middle of the road. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't like the way I feel on it. It's probably based on the strain I had at that time. There was one time I had a pretty good experience on it, but it just wasn't for me, and it's not for me.
That's as long as you make up your own mind about it. I mean, I had no problem with it. I had no problem with people who did it. The first time I did it, I think I was about 21 or 22, and a friend of mine at the time that I'd known for years.
Yep.
he was always trying to get me to do it, and finally I just succumbed. I was actually playing in a band, and we were going into our second or third set for the night. We were in a cover band, and he's like, "Come on, let's do, okay. Let me do this for the first time during a gig. That sounds like a great idea."
Great idea.
Yeah, we did it in the car and come back in, and he says, "Look, nothing may happen, but if it does, here's what you can expect." And he walked me through it. That everybody, you're going to think everything's funny.
Right.
And that's the first thing that'll happen. And then the second thing that'll happen is that you're going to get paranoid. You're going to think everybody knows. And he was right, man. And he was standing there right at the front of the stage with his arms crossed, looking right at me. And I was sitting there playing, and I'm just laughing my head off, turning my head. And then at one point he mouths the word, "Everybody knows." Yeah, it was an interesting night, but
so I'll say this.
20 years ago.
I'll say this, that as an example, we're going back to Charlotte's Web, who has 0.03% THC. You wouldn't even notice it. You wouldn't notice it. You just wouldn't notice it. It doesn't have that psychoactive feeling component to it. It's not strong enough for you to even feel that way. But it would give you the benefits of CBD. I think we had a commenter who said, Karen,
assist with inflammation.
Yeah. So it does a lot of different things. I know some athletes that I know they're friends of mine. They use it religiously. I will tell you this. I recently applied a CBD topical to my neck. I have a injury from a car accident about 2012, so about 7 years ago. It was a head-on collision, so it was a pretty bad case of in my neck. And I applied CBD on my neck, and I'm going to tell you, I started getting instant relief. From what I've heard, it takes a little bit longer. Mine happened right away. It was pretty awesome. And I tried that CBD topical. And it did not have THC in it, because you can get CBD topical that has no THC in it, which is, I believe, a hemp-based CBD. See how confusing all this stuff is? Like,
I know.
Was in it. Like, it's just so confusing. That's why I need this app to keep track of it all for me.
That's right. Absolutely. And I was thinking that, you mentioned before for patients going through chemotherapy, which is never a walk in the park. What does it do for patients on that? I've always heard about it being used. I've heard of, initially we heard about it with people with glaucoma treatments and things of that nature. What about the people who are going through the pure hell of a chemotherapy treatment?
So the first thing that I heard, and this is from personal experience, someone close within my family, chemo does a lot of different things for a lot of different people. One of the common things is that they're not hungry, and appetite is suppressed. From what I heard, it helps appetite, right? That's a huge, huge thing. Pain is another huge piece. Again, from what I've heard, it's just chemo's treacherous. So It really does help with the pain, and it really does take the edge off. There's probably a million other different things it does, but those are the two things that I've had personal experience in my close family that I've heard it really works.
So a lot of the people who are watching or listening, if they're entertaining the notion of doing a CBD treatment or looking into cannabis, get past the perceptions. I mean, it's becoming more and more legal to get into it these days. Look into the alternative treatments, because I've heard a lot about that stuff along the lines of what you're saying, that it just kind of mitigates the pain and really does help out with a lot of different things that, modern medicine, it's like for years they've been feeding it to us and wanting us to spend the money on these really expensive medications for a myriad of treatments, whether it's mental, physical, anything like that. where a lot of this natural treatment can really come into play. And maybe that's why it's been illegal for this long, but I'm getting conspiratorial. On the business side of things, now that it's being opened up to the public, there's an emerging industry coming about, even with Cannacopia having a podcast about it. So I'm assuming with that podcast, they are educating the public and doing a lot what the app will be doing as well. I guess in your words of growth hacking, that's a part of your strategy is the podcast.
It is. It is. I'll mention one more. So I nailed the two top on cancer, on chemo patients. So the three as a whole are appetite, pain, and the other one is nausea. I heard that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge one. Okay, so now let's talk about the business aspect of things. Well, because cannabis is restricted, cannabis advertising is restricting. Google and Facebook, Instagram, all the major players out there where you would normally advertise a business, they are very, very, they have a lot of guidelines to it. Cannacopia is an interesting one because we don't sell anything. We're, as Karen continues to say, we're education.
Right.
We're sort of like a Wikipedia almost, if you will, with a really good experience. So you don't have to go digging around for the information. We just tell you, we know what the experience is like and we recommend it. So we're an interesting case because we're not selling the plant and we're not necessarily promoting the consumption of it. We're not telling people, go do this. We're telling, if you want to get information, here's what you would do. Obviously, we recommend product, but that's a step further down the chain. Anyways.
Sure. You start with the problem. You start with solving the problem the person's having. Right.
So you asked about the marketing. Because we are restricted by a lot of different things, we were attempting to figure out what channels we wanted to target people on and how we wanted to get the messaging across. So I'll try to narrate my story a lot shorter. We were planning on doing a video series on cannabis, explaining like what is CBD, what is THC, what are all these little things. And halfway through the first day of production of these mini little videos that we were planning on putting together, there was a really strong sense in the room that these weren't working, because a lot of people already had this content out there and it wasn't the right voice for us. So I shelved it. I shelved it for about 3 months. And 3 months later, the team had asked me in a meeting, we need to figure out our next channel. Can you please figure this out? And I got asked this at such a great time because I had just gotten really into podcasts. I was really listening to a lot of podcasts. I listened to Tim Ferriss. I listened to Without Fail. I listened to The Pitch. I listened to a lot of business podcasts. And I said, I think I got something. And what I did was I did some research on what kind of podcasts existed out there. And most of the podcasts in the cannabis space that exist are a little bit like this. And they start like this. Oh, I'm high. Right. And so
they're not helping. They're not helping the narrative, man.
And I said, I think we can do something.
That's a facepalm moment right there when you come across those.
Yeah. I said, I think we can do something. And instead of having this sort of standard answering these CBD, THC, I said, what are the common questions that the new and average consumer, there's a fire truck. Can you hear it?
I can.
Yeah,
I think they're not liking our topic.
I'm actually, so we're Cannacopia's office. That's where I am right now,
Right.
between Venice and Santa Monica, where cannabis meets technology. It's kind of funny how it worked out. So I'm right like on a main street. Anyways, so I said to myself, what are some of the common questions people are asking themselves? Like, what are they? And so one of the common questions that people were asking them, can I get addicted to marijuana? What happens if I get too high? Can I die from consuming? To questions like, can I take weed on a plane? Can I go through the airport with marijuana? To what is it like at a dispensary? Can CBD get me high? Can cannabis affect my relationship? So I started really seeing all these questions, and I said to myself, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a podcast where we talk about one question per episode and bring in a person who's either in the industry or out of the industry to either answer or carry in a conversation. We've launched 4 weeks ago. Our 4th episode launched today. And I'll just go through the names of the first 4 episodes. The first one is, what is a stoner? Because there is a big common misconception and perception, as we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, about stoners. So that's the first episode. The second episode, we really wanted to hit this medical stuff, and we really wanted to we had a lot of people talking about the medical benefits. So we said, can CBD get you high? That was a big concern. People didn't want to try, like I didn't want to put a CBD topical on my neck because I didn't know if it was going to get me high. So that was a big thing. That was the second. The third we were hearing a lot is, especially out here in LA and Los Angeles, we're hearing dating in cannabis. Like, how is that affecting the whole dating thing? Like people like having someone who consumes versus who doesn't consume. So that was a big one. And then the biggest, the next one that I really like that we just launched, it's what to expect at your first time at a dispensary. Mm-hmm. Because there is a lot of misconceptions of what it's like at the first time in the dispensary, how overwhelming it is, as Karen continues to comment, education, and all that. So those are the first 4 episodes. We've recorded our first season, so we've got 6 more to launch over the next 6 weeks. Nice.
Good for you. If you ever need an intro, let me know. That's what I was hitting you up for anyway. So
that's what it was.
Podcast intros. Absolutely. The funny thing about it is that a lot of people that are listening or watching this, that the current debate on marijuana and CBD and everything, if you see somebody who's vaping, I would have to venture a guess that that's far more dangerous than smoking marijuana. Because, I mean, you're hearing about these things like exploding all the time and you know, I just can't, you know, I used to smoke cigarettes way back, and I can only imagine the damage I did. But now that they've got vaping out, I can't imagine that it's any better. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Talk about that. You're basically, let's pivot into the fact that what you do, you're not working directly for them. You're working as a CMO for hire, contracted through your own company, which does this growth hacking. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'll talk about Poppy Digital. What we do is we help early stage startups grow really quickly. That's the goal. Every company that I speak to, when you get to the root of why they're sitting at the table with a company like mine, is they want to grow fast, and they don't want to spend a lot of money doing it. And so it's over the years of doing this for about 12 years now, I have had to curate and curtail strategies that fit that. Do it fast, big growth, and then do it for cheap or for as little money as possible. And so philosophically, I have to really understand what's going on in my industry to be able to do that properly for my customers on a daily basis. So things that I pay attention to all the time are, where can I buy the cheapest media? And what media is the cheapest to buy? So we know that TV commercials are way too expensive, so we're not advertising on TV commercials. That's not a hack. Mm-hmm. Whereas something like an Instagram, a Facebook is way, way cheaper, really inexpensive. And then I need to know what media is performing the best and what's the cheapest. So today, as of right now, the most inexpensive media and channel is Instagram stories. It's in video format. I have to stay on Facebook's quarterly calls, listening to where they're pushing their advertisers and where they're making the cheapest, offering the cheapest rates. So Instagram stories right now is the most with the video format is the most inexpensive. So for my customers, we move and adjust. So maybe a year ago, I was doing video ads. Now I've had to do video ads for Instagram. So Instagram stories is a vertical format. It looks like this. It doesn't look like that, right? So we've had to adjust our content to fit that. And
from the video end of things, it's tough to get wrap your mind around, because I've been on a lot of different video shoots as of late where they're shooting in that format. Meaning, what Julian was talking about is shooting. What did they call that? Portrait versus landscape.
Correct.
And holding the phone sideways or up and down.
Yeah, and you just got to be nimble with it. You got to be really nimble with it, and that's what my company really does, is stays with what It takes a lot of effort to sit on these quarterly calls, listen, pay attention to the reports, but it pays in dividends when your clients have way more effective campaigns than other people out there, and you have the data to show it. So that's what we focus on. Another big piece that we do a lot, and I don't know a ton of agencies that do it this way, is something that I've been pushing out lately. Is companies, agencies, and companies like mine tend to focus on symptoms instead of the root cause. And so what I mean by that is, let's say you launch a product and it's e-commerce and you're selling it online, doesn't matter what it is, and your Facebook or your Google campaign isn't working. So what quickly happens with a business who's doing this, and the decision makers, they say to themselves, oh, that channel doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. And they stop using it and they stop spending money on it, and they go on to the next channel. So if you started on Google, maybe you go to Facebook. If Facebook didn't work, you try Instagram. And you keep kind of like popping all over the place and trying all these different channels, and you're like, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. And we believe that that's because they're treating the symptoms, and they're not treating the root cause. Well, you got to understand, if
the message over the medium,
that is a really huge component of it. And that messaging all leads to one place. It leads back to our customer's website or the brand's website. And so if you're funneling traffic to a website that has a lot of issues, has a lot of holes, and like you said, has not the right messaging, it's like, well, how can you expect any campaign, regardless whether it's Google, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, whatever it is, how do you expect that to work? And so it is not uncommon, and this is going to sound silly, that I go into a campaign and they were being serviced by another agency, and it's not uncommon to find, when you open up their ads and then you open up their landing pages, they're saying two completely separate things. So it's right what you said, it's the messaging. If you're targeting, as an example, let's say your cannabis brand, because we keep talking about cannabis, let's say your cannabis brand is targeting the recreational user, but your landing page has a bunch of medicinal information about the medical benefits. That's a mismatch. That doesn't make sense. 100%. 100%. And that's a nice way of putting it. I'll tell you that right now, Jim. It's a nice way of putting it. There is, when you go into these campaigns, you see it, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
And here's a big thing. My company's working on some advertisement now to talk about this. I'm gonna put it back to you. When you're watching a commercial on TV, what is the barrier to not watch that commercial anymore if you're watching TV?
If I'm watching TV, the barrier, if I see a commercial come on, my phone instantly comes up, and that's exactly where my eyes go. And we've talked about this on this podcast before. I talk a lot about marketing, and the medium with television is just, we were literally pitched television a couple of weeks back through Big Dot. And it's amazing to me because right after that meeting, I had a podcast with a buddy of mine. I said, isn't it amazing how you'll have a direct meeting with a medium like radio, like television, newspaper, anything like that, and how their medium is not just the top one, but it's by a long shot. First of all, and similar to cannabis. I mean, not that LED lighting is as in demand as cannabis, and I wish it was. But for the longest time, for me, being that I kind of held the title as CMO for our company, because that's a large part of what I did, and that's for most of my adult life, that's all I did was come up with messaging for businesses on the radio, because my background's in radio. Mm-hmm. That was one of the big things is, okay, what are they going to be searching for when it comes to this new industry? Because we were really on the forefront of it. How is the layman? What are they searching for on Google to find somebody to convert their business to LED lighting? So It was kind of funny to me that one of the services that the television station offered, it was like serving lobster at McDonald's, but they offered SEO, optimization and all that stuff. And I'm going, okay, yeah, okay. And she's like, well, you're not showing up on Bing. I'm going, what? Who the hell uses Bing? And she goes, well, there's still a lot of people. I said, I'm sure there are, but well, you're not showing up on Google either. Oh, really? Because that was kind of my department. Show me how I'm not showing up on Google. I said, second off, you can actually help me here. What are you searching for? Because that's been the big variable. What are you searching for to look up commercial LED lighting upgrades or conversions? And I'm too inside the bottle for that. I'm too inside the conversation to get an objective layman's terms. But to answer your question about television, that's the first thing that comes up is the phone, or just, from back in the DVR days, you'd fast forward through the commercials. I always thought that crap. If I'm a producer for a commercial, I'm going to make a 30-second spot that someone can digest in 4 to 5 seconds, because that's about how long I'm going to see it. So
I'll help. I'll kind of guide it. So the barrier to moving past a commercial when you're watching a television, talking about a program that's live, that's something that you're entertaining, right? You would either have to change the channel back to it, right? Or you would step away, or in your case, like you said, you look at your phone, right? That's the barrier to entry. On social media, the barrier to moving away from a piece of advertisement is literally the flick of your thumb by literally millimeters or centimeters. You just literally flick your thumb, and
within a fraction of a second.
Right. And so what does that mean for advertisers? And what does that mean for content? Well, that means a whole lot of other stuff. And the problem that we've seen is everyone's trying to take their commercials from TV and apply them towards social media.
Right.
And that's just, they don't convert one-to-one. They just do not.
I called that consumer-driven advertising. Permission marketing is what was called back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember when that first term, when it first came up, permission. I'm like, what is permission marketing? Where you have to give permission for them to market to you. I'm going, who the hell's going to do that?
Right.
You know, and it's amazing to me how, you know, when what you're talking about is what we referred to. Are you familiar with the Wizard Academy?
No.
Roy H. Williams. What you're talking about is a concept that they have talked about. They call it surprising broca. And that's an area of the brain that basically filters out all the crap. 5 to 10,000 messages a day that we get hit on that try and penetrate our noggin. It's called Broca's area of the brain. And there was a methodology that we used in radio. I actually called it look at your radio moments. I would write all my spots, or at least attempt to write them, where I wanted to make the listener look at their radio and get their attention. Whether it was an odd set of words and a phrase, anything coming out of left field with something. But what you're, like what you're saying is that what's going to get their attention? Is it us based, or is it corporate top down based in terms of the messaging? And the messaging, then once you got them, you got to make sure that they're understanding what problem is being solved. Case in point, and I always bring this up, Dollar Shave Club. Okay, what is this Dollar Shave Club? I've heard about it. I've seen the video started going out on social media back in 2012, 2013. Dude, the day after I saw that video, I became a customer.
Yep.
Beautiful execution of a viral video that was hilarious and solved a problem. Right. Now, fast forward, I'm still a subscriber. I think about 6 months ago, I went to the website to switch up my my account a little bit and change up. I needed like a razor blade or something, or a handle. And I went there and it's like, what the hell did you guys do? Right. You got creams and wipes and this and that. And I'm going, I just need to change up my subscription. I need to buy a handle. Can you just throw one in? And it took me friggin' 10 minutes to find out how to do that. Completely changed, like you were talking about. Not that I didn't stop my subscription, but holy crap, guys! Talk about line extension.
You're right. You hit on the money. That they are a marketing case study that gets revisited a lot. Because it was such a great piece of advertisement. There's so many companies that do that little ending where you kind of party at the end. A lot of companies have copied that. But yeah, it's very funny that there's a lot of agencies who do what I do out there, and they aren't thinking through some of these things, and they're not paying attention to, like, literally you cannot convert a TV commercial to video. So the question has to be asked is, like, how does anyone know that anyone's doing it right? And what I like to talk about, Gary Vaynerchuk actually put out something like this about 2 months ago. Yeah, he's great. He put out some content. If I remember the dates correctly, the first radio commercial was in 1922. And the first, which was for an apartment, which was for I don't know if it was apartments or a housing development in New York. And then in 1930 something, 33, 34, 35, 36, something like that, was the first TV advertisement from a watch company, Bull of a Time. And you have to ask yourself, the transition between radio commercials to TV commercials, that transitionary period, that took probably a couple years to get it figured out, if not a couple decades, to figure it out how to do proper TV advertisement, how to do proper radio advertisement. So I'll give you an example, right? If you listen to the very first radio advertisement, it sounds like a newspaper clipping because that's what was before. And if you watch the first TV advertisement, it sounds like a radio commercial. Mm-hmm. So if you start to look at advertising today and the video ads you see today, you're seeing things that should be on TV. That's how it feels like. And so I think that's a huge problem. And I'm doing everything in my power, including launching my own podcast called the Poppy Podcast, to get this outward messaging out.
The Poppy Podcast needs an intro. It's
founded on some great principles. It's founded on some great content, a lot of great experts. I got to get you a copy of some of the stuff so you can take a look at it.
And a lot of like what you're talking about is the styles and techniques of how you do the video. I mean, a lot of things, it depends on the product, it depends on the service. There's a lot of, I actually bought a gimbal, a smartphone / GoPro gimbal that was handheld. It's called the Smooth. Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. It was out for about a year and a half. I thought it was a pretty cool product. And I said, yeah, because I'm a video producer as well. Let me see if I can have a use for this, but I'll see down the road. It took me about a year and a half to convert and actually break down and buy it. But they're basically white labeling these things that come out of China, and they make it look good and flashy. Same thing with the guys who have the dust covers that go over your face, and they've got the hats, and they got like faces on them, like clown faces and stuff. Very cool visual appeal to these things. And hey, that's cool. I'll go out and buy it. Doesn't the problem that it solves is while I'm mowing the lawn, I'm not going to breathe dust in. It's going to keep my face clean, keep the sweat off my head, that kind of thing. I'm sure they're doing pretty well with that. But again, I've always just gone to the client in the past, and this is a great example. It was a car dealership, Chevy dealership here in town, Team Chevrolet. That's who it was. And the guy tried everything, and he was kind of at his wit's end. And I asked him, what's your biggest your biggest obstacle? What's your biggest headache? And he goes, oh, our location. It sucks. I said, let's run with that. And we wrote a campaign of commercials around the fact that, hey, look, we're not going to try and beat around the bush and tell you how great we are. We're a Chevy dealership. We're one of 50 Chevy dealerships in this area. What makes us different? The fact that we're going to be honest about it and tell you we're a car dealership. This is how we do it. We're just going to be as honest as possible. Prove it? Fine. Our location sucks. Good luck finding us. And that's exactly how the spot went. Right. And it was very interesting because it actually won me an Addy Award, and it got them some business. So I mean, it was nice back in the day when a customer and a client was allowing me to do my job. It was a lot of fun.
It is when client you've hit the nail on the head. When clients get out of our way, you can do some really cool stuff, and typically that leads to some really good results. When you're trying to make the customer happy for their own ego, that's what it is. And Poppy Digital doesn't have a lot of customers. I think, I don't even know, maybe 6 or 7 right now.
Right.
And they are very, very on the same page with, we are building a brand, not for us. We're building a brand for our target demographic. And as long as we both agree with that, and we agree with this, we're going to have a great conversation and we're going to have a great relationship. But if we're building for your taste buds and we're building for something that you want, I don't know if I can help you. Actually, I know I can't.
It's basically, one of the best sayings I ever came across was, money changes hands when problems are solved. Right. Okay. And if you find a pain, the same thing with selling. When I used to sell cars, once I got really good at it, my first MO was uncovering the negative aspects of the previous vehicle they had, previous experiences, previous dealerships, anything. Right. Cry me a river. I want to hear it. So that framed the ability for me to posture, come up with an on-the-spot value proposition, put that forward, and then go for the close. Same thing with advertising. If you're thinking You there?
Oh, he's coming back.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we lost you there for a second. He's talking about the value
proposition, going in for a close thereafter. The same thing with if you're a business and you're going in for your marketing campaign from a top-down posture, meaning I want to get on and eviscerate myself and give you a laundry list of everything. You got to put yourself in the recipient's shoes. You got to think. I always call it being them-centric. # be them-centric. What is going to stop them from scrolling to get to pay attention to your message? You got to think of it from that, and it's tough. It's tough. There's very few magic pills. But moving towards the close of this thing, Julian, tell me, who are you marinating your mind in lately?
Who am I marinating my mind? Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna pop open my podcast so I don't miss anyone, because I think all these people need to need a mention on this, because these are who I listen to on a daily basis. I'll tell you my secret. So I've got a morning routine. My morning routine is I wake up, I make sure, like, okay, I've got a meeting. I figure out what time I got to get out of my house, but I get into the bathtub, and I spend about like 10 minutes like checking emails, replying to certain people. But then the moment I'm done with that, I get on to podcasts. And
does the bathtub have water in it? You taking a bath for the first 10 minutes?
Yeah, I'm taking a bath. I'm taking a bath for about 30 minutes.
You're not just sitting in the bathtub without any water in it. Okay.
So it's got some water in it. I even turn it off to make sure I'm not wasting a lot of water. So anyways, and I listen to a podcast, and it helps me so much. So here's where I start with, depending on the day. We'll get with Tim Ferriss, who, I mean, if you don't know who he is, go check him out. Go
4-hour work week.
Yeah, go check him out. You may not. You as the audience may not know this gentleman, Michael Gervais. He's the sports psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks, works with Pete Carroll. I can tell you some of the best episodes that I've listened to on a podcast is this guy, Michael Gervais. He is able, because he's a psychologist, he's able to get so deep. And this is nothing to take away from Tim Ferriss, because Tim Ferriss has some really good content. He's got some really amazing people. But Michael Gervais is able to take some of the world's top performers and break them down so deeply that it's like moving. I mean, it is rare that my hair doesn't stand up when I'm listening to his podcasts. It's rare. Wow.
I wrote his name down. I'm going to check him out.
Yeah. So his podcast is called Finding Mastery.
Finding Mastery. Nice.
Another incredible one, if you're in the startup world or you're in the building a company world, Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, the CEO of LinkedIn. Oh, he's awesome. Gimlet Media is a podcast company. They were bought by Spotify for a lot of money. They have one called Without Fail. Really, really good one. They focus on the failures of really successful people. I really like that one. And the last one, if you're in the startup world trying to raise capital, if you are trying to raise capital, Shark Tank is fun, but if you really want to listen to what it's like, what investors are really asking you, listen to The Pitch. The Pitch. It's by Gimlet Media.
I'll have to take a look at that one too. Take a listen.
That one's really, really good. They have some really good investors on there, and and you can see the real questions investors are asking.
Julian, where can people find you, man?
So people can find me at poppydigital.com. People can find me at poppydigital. And that's where I live. We're currently in the middle of rebranding, refocusing our social media, rebuilding our website. So we've got a lot of cool, fun things coming up that are going to be putting out a lot of great content to give a lot of value. And I just wanted to say thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. And anybody who's listening, make sure you check out Julian. We'll put all his contact information in the descriptions. Poppydigital.com, Poppy, correct?
You got me saying it now. Papi.
Papi. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
I gotcha. I got it written down wrong.
It's like daddy in Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, thank you for being on. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Of course, if you're listening, please subscribe, comment on the episodes. If you have any questions or if you think there's anybody that I need to have on, by all means, reach out. Go to jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. You'll be able to get all the basics there and all of the pertinence information to reach out. I'm always basically a phone call or a text away. It's not tough to get a hold of, man. Also check out Cannacopia, man. That's another great thing to check out as well. Moving into episode 5 on that podcast, if you want to check those guys out. And of course the Poppy podcast coming up, right?
Yeah, that'll be launching soon.
That's right, man. Well, thanks for being on. I really do appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, man.
This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com /podcast.